Welcome to the revised site application and business registry website webinar presented by the Oregon Department of Education Child Nutrition Programs. This is Kim Cardona with Joe Grasso and Dustin Melton and Lynn Reynoso. This live webinar is intended to assist sponsors in completing the requested site provider application. Please note all participants are currently muted. After the review of the revised application and business registry website, we will field all questions. Please hold all questions until the end of the webinar. To ask a question, you will use the chat box located at the bottom right of your screen to type and submit your questions. Please limit questions to the topics of the revised site application and business registry website. This live webinar is being recorded. After completion of the live webinar, we will post a link to the webinar along with a question and answer document on the ODE CMP public website. So as you are aware, according to the USDA guidance, sponsors may only enter into an agreement with the provider as an individual, not as a corporation or business. While a corporation or business may operate one or more daycare homes, this does not have a bearing on CACFP participation. Each home must be operated by a different provider, and each provider must have an individual agreement with a sponsor. Child Care Division regulations allow for a corporation, owner, or business to operate more than one registered or certified daycare home. Recently, there has been an increase in daycare homes that are owned by a corporation or business other than an individual daycare home provider. As a result, sponsors may take additional steps to gather information on owners of each daycare home. Providers placed on the National Disqualified List cannot participate in the Child and Adult Care Food Program as a daycare home provider and cannot serve as a principal in any Child and Adult Care Food Program institution or facility for 7 years after disqualification. An owner of a daycare home or homes is considered to be a principal. ODE CMP has revised the provider information and site application form to include business owner information. The business owner information will allow sponsors to determine if the owners are on the National Disqualified List. When a new application is submitted and the provider and/or business owners are on the National Disqualified List, that home cannot be approved for Child and Adult Care Food Program participation. If providers do not know the business owner information, the application cannot be completed and approved until the business owner information is obtained and checked against the National Disqualified List. If the sponsor has any current providers whose daycare is owned by a different person, please have all those providers complete the new form and use this information to check the National Disqualified List. If sponsors determine that a business owner of a currently participating provider is on the National Disqualified List, please contact your assigned child nutrition specialist for instructions. Sponsors can use the Oregon Secretary of State's Business Registry website as an additional means to verify home ownership information. The registry information on business owners, which can be searched by the business name or the individual names of the owner, the provider and business owner. This link is provided on the revised provider information site application memo dated July 2nd, 2013. Dustin will now provide directions on how to use the new ODE CMP Family Daycare Home site application and instructions on how to access and use the Oregon Secretary of State's Business Registry website.
Thank you. So what we would like to do now is just review the changes to the provider information and site application form. So you should have received the form with an attachment to the memo as stated. So the changes are noted here. We've added in business owner information 1 and business owner information number 2. In addition, we've added business name, which was originally just DBA, but we've now added it as business name, as well as the business hours, which is located here at the bottom. When completing the form, make sure you include all information. Do not leave anything blank. If there is only one business owner, write in the business owner to info to simply state that there's only one business owner. Again, include all owner information and business name and business hours. Again, don't leave anything blank. Next, I'd like to review the Oregon Secretary of State Business Registry search, which, as Kim mentioned, the link was included in the memo. And if you haven't seen this website, this is what it will look like. You can search by business name or by individual name. So if you search by business name, just put an example here. So once you type in the business name, there could be several businesses that have that same name in the title. One thing you want to look at is entity status. And you can, to determine what these initials mean, you just click on this entity status table and it will tell you ACT is active, INA is inactive. Same thing with entity type. You can determine what does ABN mean, assume business name, so on and so forth. So here we have the active business, which is Precious Little Lambs Preschool and Child Care LLC. And you click on that, and then you'll receive plenty of information. You'll get the principal place of business, which is listed here, as well as the registered agent. So this would be your owner, which would be Shannon Aldis. It gives her address as well. And then it may also list a manager, which is, in this instance, is also Shanna. And then at the bottom, if there are any articles, amendments, anything like that, the images will be loaded here. And to be able to see these, you just click on the icon. So if we click on the articles of organization, it'll give you the type, the entity name, which would be your business name, the mailing address, the name and address of your registered agent, which again is Shannon, the organizers, duration, and then the management. So this is helpful when trying to obtain owner information. There's also amendments. If they do a reinstatement amendment, that would be in here as well. So any amendments that are made for the organization, the business, will be included there. So the other option is search by individual. So if you just click the individual link, you can search by first and last name. So if we did the same, Shanna Aldis, it'll show all the businesses that Shanna is associated with, both active and inactive. And again, here's our Precious Little Lambs Preschool and Child Care LLC. So this is another way to get to the owner information. So if we click there, it just gives us the same information. So again, this is a really helpful website in gathering information to determine business owner information for specific child care homes, daycare homes. Okay, so at this point, we'll open it up for questions. As Kim indicated, if you could type your questions in the chat box, we will do our best to provide any clarification and answers. If there's anything that we can't answer, we will review, and we will be putting together a Q&A document that we will post along with the link to the webinar. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type them in the chat box. Or if there's any examples that you would like us to go through with the business registry, we can do that. So we have a question. Question is, will ODE be translating this form? And yes, we will. So stay tuned. We have to go through a process to get that translated, but we'll try to get that out to you as soon as possible. We have another question. It's, what if the provider does not own the home? Do we ask for the owner? So what we're looking for is we want the owner of the business. We want to obtain what the business is, who's the owner of that business. That's the information you want to put in the provider information site application. We have another question. Will the information Kim presented be available to review as a resource? And yes, it will be a part of the webinar once it's posted. We have a follow-up question to whether ODE will be translating the form. Do we just use the English version in the meantime? And yes, please do so. We have another question. Most DHS listed providers do not register. Do we just fill out box 1 and 2? We just fill out box 1 and 2 the same, correct? Are you referring to business owner 1 and business owner 2 boxes, or are you referring to the DHS listed boxes? So when you're filling out the form, I just want to clarify that no matter the situation, let's say the provider is the owner, then for business owner 1, you could put same as above, and then for business owner 2, you could just say there's only one owner, or you could put NA. But again, it's important that you don't leave anything blank. Make sure all the areas are completed. So we have another question. If a provider is running the business apart from the owner, then they will not be allowed to continue on the food program if the owner is on the nationally disqualified list, correct? That is correct. What we're trying to get to here is trying to gather the information of the owner to determine if they're on the nationally disqualified list. Because as Kim mentioned in the opening, in the intro, was that an owner is a responsible principal. They are a principal, and therefore you cannot be on the food program if any responsible principal is on the nationally disqualified list. That's why it's important to gather this information. Are there any other questions at this point? So we have another question. Question is, do we have to redo all of the previous ones? So I'm assuming redo all the previous site application and provider information forms, excuse me. No, you only want to do the ones that you're aware of. If you are aware that there is a home, or there's a business where there's an additional owner, go back and make sure you complete an additional form for those instances. Otherwise, just start doing this going forward with all the providers. We have an additional question. The question is, we have some Montessori centers that own certified homes. And would we need to use the Montessori name as the owner, even though the provider is registered as a certified family? We'll have to review that, and we will respond in the Q&A with an answer to that question. Are there any additional questions? We have another question. What is the added value by the registry, since we already know the provider's name and business? So the best way to answer that question is we had a situation where a business owner that we were not aware of was actually on this national disqualified list, and she had owned several homes. And so through some research on the business registry, we actually found her name connected to several homes, and that was the only way that we could find to have some concrete documentation that the business owner was connected to the homes. So the added value is you have an additional area to gather information that the provider may not provide or may not know. Are there any additional questions that we can answer at this time? So there is a comment that most providers don't register their business names, and that's correct. There are several that don't. However, you will find that several of the business owners that own multiple homes are registered on the Secretary of State. So another question, once we look at the registry, are we finished and absolved of any issue? Should there be something that was not on the registry? So using the business registry is not required. What we wanted to do is give you a resource and a tool to be able to find information. If the business isn't listed, then it wouldn't be listed on the website. This is just another way to try and locate that information. We have an additional question. Are we supposed to do more than look at the registry if they are not listed? So again, this is the business registry site is a resource that's available for you to protect yourself in these types of situations. So if use it for what it's worth again. So if they're not on the registry, then they're just there. They wouldn't be available, and that's fine. Are there any additional questions at this time? So we have an additional question. What if the provider refuses to tell us the name of the owner, or if they just say they own it but they really don't? So to answer the first part of the question, what if the provider refuses to tell us the name of the owner? Then the form will be incomplete. You have to make sure you get that information to complete the form. If they say they own it but they really don't, I want to point out that there is a certification statement that certifies that they've included all information that's true and correct, and they understand this information is being given in connection with the receipt of federal funds. So they are certifying that everything is correct, and they are signing it. And they can be terminated and prosecuted if they give false information. Are there any additional questions at this time? So if there's no additional questions, we're going to go ahead. We'll end the webinar. We appreciate your time and your questions. And if there are any additional questions, you can always contact your assigned specialist. And as Kim mentioned, we will post this live webinar as well as a Q&A as soon as possible after the webinar. Thank you, everybody, for your time.